Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about the monetary policy and the MP curve. What is monetary policy? It is the demand side of economic policy, refers to the actions undertaken by a nation's central bank to control money supply and achieve macroeconomic goals that promote sustainable economic growth. The interest rate is the main tool that central banks use to influence the economy. Central banks set a short-term nominal interest rate and influence long-term real interest rate. And what is MP curve? It is the curve that represents central bank's monetary policy and shows how the central bank's interest rate impacts the output gap and indirectly representing the asset market equilibrium. Where can we use the MP curve? In the ISMP model, we can use this curve to understand the business cycle and assumes that the prices and wages are sticky in the short run. There are three curves in the model. IS curve represents the goods market equilibrium. MP curve represents the central bank's monetary policy. Phillips curve represents the short-run equilibrium between the output gap and the inflation rate. Short-run nominal interest rate and long-run real interest rate. From the first two equations, we combine together to get the MP curve. RLT plus equals to I plus TSE plus DP minus pi E. RLT is the long-term real interest rate. I is the short-term nominal interest rate. TSE is the term structure effect. DP equals to default risk premium. And pi E is the expected inflation. What is TSE? The term structure of interest rates depicts the relationship between the interest rates on similar bonds with different maturities. The interest rate on a long-term bond is the average of expected interest rate on future short-term bonds plus a term premium. Short-term and long-term interest rates are different due to expectations of future short-term interest rates and term premiums. We combine those two to get the term structure effect. Long-term nominal interest rate equals to short-term nominal interest rate plus term premium. What is default risk premium? First, what is default risk? It is the chance that interest and or principal will not be paid back. Bonds with longer term will have a higher default risk. Default risk structure of interest rates depicts the relationship between the interest rate on different bonds with the same maturity. The difference in these interest rates is due to different default risks. Thus, the investors demand different default risk premiums. What is expected inflation? It is the public's expectations for inflation. This is the MP curve on the graph. We can see that the RLT, which is long-term real interest rate as the y-axis and the output gap y as the x-axis. And we can see the MP is a horizontal line because the model assumes that the Fed or the central bank is able to keep the real interest rate constant despite the increases or decreases in the output gap. The MP curve shifters, so we have the equation here. So in case 1, if we want a higher or longer term real interest rate, what may result in this? If I or TSE or DP are increased or pi E is decreased, MP will shift up, like in case 1. So we get from the equation here. So in case 2, we want a lower long-term real interest rate. What may result in this? If I or TSE or DP are decreased or pi E is increased, MP will shift down, like in case 2. So we also get this from the equation. So in ISMP equilibrium, so we can see that the output gap equals to the actual GDP minus the potential GDP divided by potential GDP. If the output gap is negative, it means that the actual GDP is smaller than the potential GDP. If it is positive, then the actual GDP is bigger than the potential GDP, which is the case 2 in here. And the monetary policy curve, if I or TSE or DP are increased or pi E is decreased, MP will shift up to MP1, like in case 1. And long-term real interest rate R will rise from R to R1. And output gap will decrease from 0% to -3%. If I or TSE or DP are decreased or pi E is increased, MP will shift down to MP2, like in case 2. And long-term real interest rate R will decrease from R to R2, and output gap will rise from 0 to 3%. So here are several MP curve shifters. If economic is booming, it means the output gap is positive, and both long-term real interest rate and short-term nominal interest rate will rise, and MP shift up, like in case 2. If economy is in recession, and vice versa. So here are my sources. Thank you for watching.